You scroll past a photo and your stomach does something strange. It drops. Just slightly. Just enough to notice. The person in the photo isn't someone you dislike. They might even be someone you love. But something in your brain just ran a calculation you never asked it to run. And you lost. That feeling has a name. It has a history. And it goes back much further than social media. This is the story of why your brain compares you to everyone around you, why it was never designed to stop, and why the people who seem most at peace are not the ones who escaped it. They're the ones who finally understood it. Your brain is not trying to hurt you when it compares. It is trying to keep you alive. That sentence sounds strange at first. But stay with it. For almost all of human history, you lived in a group. Not a city. Not a neighborhood. A band. 50 people, maybe 100. And in that band, your position mattered enormously. Where you stood in the hierarchy determined what you ate, who you paired with, how much protection you received, whether your children survived. This was not abstract. It was life and death every single day. So your brain evolved to track rank obsessively. It developed what psychologists call social comparison. A constant, automatic scan of your environment asking, where do I stand relative to the people around me? Am I gaining ground or losing it? Am I above or below? Leon Festinger identified this formally in 1954. He was a social psychologist at MIT, and his social comparison theory made a claim that seemed almost obvious once he said it. Humans have a fundamental drive to evaluate their own opinions and abilities. And when no objective standard exists, we evaluate ourselves by looking at other people. Notice what Festinger said. A fundamental drive. Not a bad habit. Not a flaw in your character. A drive. The same category as hunger. The same category as the urge to sleep or breathe. Your brain did not pick this up from a magazine. It as built in. But here is where it starts to get interesting. Festinger also noticed that people don't compare themselves to just anyone. You don't feel inadequate because you can't run as fast as a cheetah. You don't feel behind because you're not as tall as a mountain. Your brain specifically targets people who are similar to you and slightly above you in the area that currently matters. That word matters is doing a lot of work. Your brain doesn't compare your cooking to someone's career success. It compares the thing you care about right now against the person who has a little more of it than you do. It's surgical. It's specific. And it is never satisfied because the moment you reach the level of the person above you, the frame shifts and there is always someone new slightly above. This mechanism has a name. Psychologists call it the hedonic treadmill of social comparison. You run. You gain ground. The treadmill speeds up. You run harder. You never arrive. And your brain registers this not as a failure of the system but as the system working exactly as designed. Think about what this meant in the ancestral environment. If you were in a band of 50 people and you stopped tracking your rank, you could slide down without noticing. You could lose access to food, to mates, to protection, and by the time you realized it, the damage was done. The people who paid obsessive attention to where they stood, they survived. They passed on this obsessive attention to their children. You are those children. Robert Sapolsky, the Stanford neuroendocrinologist who spent decades studying baboon troops in Kenya, documented what happens in the brains and bodies of animals when they drop in social rank. Cortisol, the stress hormone, spikes. Immune function drops. Sleep patterns deteriorate. The animal is not just socially diminished. It is physiologically different. It is measurably less healthy. And then Sapolsky looked at humans and found the same thing. Social rank, real or perceived, shapes your biology. When you feel like you're falling behind, your body responds as if you are being chased. The comparison is not just emotional. It is physical. So you are walking around with a system inside you that was calibrated for a village of 50 people, and now it is running constantly in a world where your comparison pool is essentially everyone alive. This is where the ancient mechanism collides with modernity in a way your ancestors could never have predicted. In a band of 50, you might compare yourself to 3 or 4 people who were better hunters than you, or 2 or 3 who were more respected in the group. The comparison was bounded. It was specific. And crucially, it was real. You could see these people, touch them, exist alongside them. Now, open any app. In 10 seconds, you have been exposed to more human achievement, more human beauty, more human success than an ancestral human would have encountered in an entire lifetime. And your brain has no update for this. It does not know that the person's highlight reel is not their life. It does not know that you are seeing a curated, filtered, optimized version of a moment, not a person. It registers the information the same way it registered seeing the best hunter in your village bring home an enormous kill. It says, that person has more than you. You are behind. Do something. Psychologists call this upward social comparison, measuring yourself against people who are doing better than you in a domain you care about. And research consistently shows it makes people feel worse. A 2018 study by psychologist Philippe Verjuin found that passive use of social media, scrolling without interacting, triggered upward comparisons at a rate that significantly increased negative effect, what researchers measure as emotional distress, in participants across multiple age groups. But here is the twist that most conversations about comparison miss entirely. Downward comparison exists too, and you use it constantly. When you see someone struggling, someone who has fallen behind in an area where you feel insecure, something in your brain relaxes. This is not cruelty. It is the same ancient system running in the other direction. Your rank has gone up. Relatively speaking, you are safer. The system responds with something that feels uncomfortably close to relief. You have felt this. You know you have. And that feeling does not make you a bad person. It makes you a person. It makes you exactly the kind of brain that survived long enough to feel bad about the feeling afterward. The problem is not the comparison. The problem is that the target keeps moving. The comparison pool keeps expanding. And the brain, your brain, never evolved a natural stopping point. So what do the people who seem to have escaped this actually do differently? Researchers have identified something called identity-based reference groups. The idea that your brain doesn't just compare you to random others, it compares you to the people whose identity you have adopted or aspire to. If you start thinking of yourself as someone who values craft over clout, the comparison shifts. You begin measuring against a standard internal to the identity, not external to your social position. This does not mean the comparison stops. It means the comparison changes direction. Instead of measuring, G against others horizontally, am I ahead or behind? The comparison turns vertical. Am I better than I was yesterday? Am I closer to the person I am trying to become? Psychologist Carol Dweck spent decades documenting the difference between people who orient around performance goals, being seen as competent relative to others, and those who orient around mastery goals, becoming more competent than they were before. The first group compares outward. The second compares backward against their own past self. Dweck's research is stark. People oriented toward mastery goals show more resilience after setbacks, more intrinsic motivation, and significantly less distress when encountering people who outperform them. Not because they stopped noticing, but because the other person's achievement stopped being a threat to their rank and started being evidence that the goal is achievable. Your brain is going to compare. Tonight, tomorrow morning, in the middle of conversations, in the quiet between tasks. The system will run. The calculation will complete. And the answer it comes back with will depend almost entirely on the question you have trained it to ask. The question your ancestors trained it to ask was, am I ahead of them? The question you can train it to ask is, am I ahead of yesterday's version of me? Same brain, same ancient machinery, completely different output. Tonight, when you feel that small drop in your stomach while scrolling, while talking, while watching someone else get something you wanted, notice it. Don't fight it. It is 50,000 years of evolutionary intelligence doing exactly what it was built to do. It is your brain trying to keep you alive in a world that no longer exists the way it once did. And then ask it a different question. The drop in your stomach will still come. But what you do next has never been more entirely up to you.